Good morning. How's everyone doing today? I just pressed the first live button. It's 10:12 Eastern time. I was planning on going live at 10, but that's okay. YouTube had other plans. We got this. I'm just going to share the links on the other socials so everyone can join. Feel free to drop some thoughts in the chat. Say good morning. Where are you tuning in from? Okay, let's see. I'm going to move this over here. And we're going to hit this. I don't know if this was just my computer, but YouTube said it needed Chrome. That's such a Google thing to do. But I'm on my MacBook and it wanted to use Safari. So we're going to post this. And then we're going to post this on Twitter. Okay. Awesome. Welcome, everyone. So, my name is CarrieAnne Cormier. I am the host here at The Carrie Show, is what we're going to call it at Bank Smart Studio. If you know me, thank you for joining. If you don't know me, let me tell you a little bit about myself. My name is CarrieAnne Cormier. I am a financial services executive by trade, currently taking a sabbatical from corporate life. And at heart, I'm really a marketing and social media nerd. Definitely my passion and things that I love. And in my spare time right now, I am looking to, share a lot of insights, some fun stories along the way, and comment on some of the things that are going on in the banking and credit union world. Does that sound good? So we're going to start. I was originally planning this stream for yesterday, but I did not know that despite having a YouTube channel for a while, you have to request that YouTube lets you go live. And it has a 24-hour waiting period, I guess. So just all the weirdos on the internet can't go live whenever they want. And so today we are going live. And I think the funniest thing, so I love Groundhog's Day. And yesterday, the groundhog saw his shadow, which means 6 more weeks of winter. But for you guys, it means 6 more weeks of your winter credit card sprint. So let's go. Let's get those apps in. We have a unit goal. We have a dollar goal. The foot is on the pedal, and we are not backing down now. Who else is in a credit card sprint right now? Or are we doing the traditional debt consolidation from the holidays? Let's get a HELOC, prepare for a winter home heating loan. What are we doing? Because it's too early for the spring. Let's have a HELOC credit card promo, but there is the HELOC debt consolidation promo or the unexpected repairs promo. There are options, people. Yeah. I'm interested in what I'm not currently at a financial institution, so I'm interested in what current sales focuses are. I was talking with a CEO a couple weeks ago, and he had a really great insight that they were focusing their goals more on to be more socially responsible. So it wasn't about units and houses and mortgage goals. It was about how many families they were helping meet their home ownership dreams. And I just thought that was really cool. And it's really the same thing, but it's a more positive way of spinning it. And when you're in the financial services world, there's 2 schools of thought, right? There's the sales goals. We got to hit our numbers. We got to just meet it for the sake of meeting it. We'll call that the Wells Fargo approach. And then there's the we're really trying to meet customer and member needs. And that's more of the bank and credit union approach. But I think with that, the lines are starting to get blurred where banks and credit unions are trying to, and have been for a while, quite honestly, adopt a more results-driven approach. And I think what gets lost along the way is the customer and the member, and that's what you're really doing it for. And you say you're here for financial literacy and for helping people in the community, and I'm not sure that's always true. And um, my view might be a little tainted being in the Northeast. I'm in central Massachusetts, about 45 minutes west of Boston, and it might be a little different. So I would love to hear if you're the South, Midwest, East Coast, what your focus and kind of cultures like at your bank or credit union. Those that I've been around, those that I've worked at, those that I've in circles that I've been in at conferences, stuff like that. It's really been about the numbers and almost under the guise of we're helping people. But at the end of the day, it ends up really being a little more blurry. And one of the things that I think is really interesting is if you've seen the article, it was posted in Business Insider, but it's probably circulating around the web from Citibank's CEO, Jane Fraser, and she sends out a memo, right? So this is, I'll say, probably one of the top five banks in the US, right? Maybe even the world that she warned staff in a memo, "Old habits are out and performance is in." That's the title. Jane Fraser, CEO of Citi, is making clear she expects employees to level up their game this year. How many of you have heard that going into 2026? In a company memo, Fraser says it's time to look into the future, shed old habits, and buckle down. Interesting. What does that mean? So, she told the firm that more than 200,000 employees that she expects higher performance this year. I'm going to read a quote. Every one of us has to adopt a more commercial mindset, asking for the business, competing for the full wallet, and not settling for a secondary role or missed opportunity. Now, that's so interesting. So, I started in banking in 2005. And I will say, I was at a small, at the time, probably 500 million in assets, community bank, and it was very much order taking. Definitely there to help customers, but it wasn't any sort of aggressive sales goals. There was I'll say, a referral light program where if you happened to cross sell a checking account or happened to, upgrade someone in their credit card, you got $2, right? And it was more for bragging rights than money. Um, but it was interesting because over the years, you've had different iterations of sales manager, sales culture, sales training, conversation models, asking for the business. Were we really mean it this time? And this isn't just where I was. This is throughout, I would say, the retail environment. And it's interesting that somewhere like Citi, who I would have pegged as being more sales driven and sales forward, or focused, to having to be issuing that kind of, I'll say, ultimatum. Um, she goes on to say, "We are not graded on effort, we are judged on our results." That's an interesting one. When I was running retail, we talked about a lot about habits and those that would create results, right? It wasn't always winning the business every time, but if you were focusing on certain habits, then the results followed. And I do believe that. It's not always about the end number. There's a lot of times where, in having, I'm thinking a couple things, having lived through different iterations now of mortgage cycles, where inventory is high, inventory is low, rates are high, rates are low. People are refinancing, people are not refinancing. There was a lot of times where, you'd have first time home buyers and there just weren't properties out there, but you had a legitimate, you met a need, right? By connecting your member or customer with the loan officer. They had a pre-approval, the deal just couldn't close. And for me, that's an effort, but that's also a result, right? At the end of the day, they probably will end up closing with us. but it just hadn't happened, other circumstances. So it's interesting that I'm really reflecting on this because it's hard for me to believe that somewhere like Citi is having a hard time with this, I'll call it commercial mindset, when I would have perceived them as way more forward in that. And, community banks and credit unions have really been chasing that along the way. And I would say I remember hearing that, prior to me being in a leadership role. I'd hear that every year. This year, we're serious about a sales culture. We're bringing in a consultant. And I laughed because it was like, oh, shoot, there was, a wave of panic. Like, we're going to be like Citizens Bank and um, we're gonna just shove credit card offers down people's throats. And I remember even one time working alongside a sales manager that came from Citizens, and it was the instructions and directive to the staff was, "All right, we're gonna call once in the morning, leave a message. Call once in the afternoon, don't leave a message. The next morning, call once in the morning, don't leave a message. Then call the following night, leave a message." And you're like, "What? I am calling people twice a day?" And leaving one, like, that is just insane. And if you're in the community banking or credit union world, this is what, customers and members have fleed from. They don't want that, and there's a way to educate and meet goals and fulfill client needs, without harassment. That's just for me, that's just like an assembly line mentality. You're just looking at getting a unit or a dollar. You're not looking to meet a need, and if you're not doing it in a way that the client understands that you have their best interest at heart, um, then you either haven't built that relationship with them or you're not communicating that appropriately. Um, I know one thing that I used to do as both, a branch banker and as a executive was I firmly believe this, I would handwrite thank you cards to customers or members, whether I had a good interaction with them and I was able to help them with something, and maybe I thought, "Okay, I know we talked about this, I'd like to drop the seed in their head for, when you're ready," kind of thing, or "Here's how it could help." Um, I would write that, "Thanks for coming in today. I really enjoyed our conversation." Or if there was maybe, I don't want to say a bad moment, but an opportunity for us to do better, like saying, "I'm thank you for letting me help you with that issue today. We're committed to upholding the highest customer service, and I appreciate you letting me work through that. And here's a $10 gift card to a local coffee shop. I hope you enjoy the rest of the day. If there's anything else you need, please let me know." Or if there were comments on social, about the credit union or bank, good or bad, I would get their address, send it out to them, and really try to create those winning moments. Um, and for me, that built relationships, that built trust. Those people knew that I had and my colleagues had their best interest at heart, and that's where I think community banking and the credit union world differ from a place like Citi. Citi feels more like a factory, and I'm not sure that there's those opportunities. I'd love to know if I'm wrong. Does anyone from a large bank, BOA, TD? I'd love to hear, about the relationships that you built. I'm sure it's very similar on a micro level. At the branch level, there may be those relationships of the people that you see every day. I know, in Central Mass, a lot of the larger banks are really, holdovers from old M&As where it may have been your first bank account in 1950 when you were younger, and you've just gone through all the iterations, and there's a sense of pride. And so now you're with Bank of America. You don't necessarily want to be, but it's your bank, right? So I'm sure there's a lot of those relationships of people that have held over and do, come to know the people in their community, and that's amazing. Um, let's keep reading. So they talk about, Citi has made it clear that it's sticking to a plan established in early 2024 to slash up to 20,000 jobs over 3 years. The streamlining effort is part of the corporate overhaul the bank has dubbed the transformation. How many times have we heard that? A sweeping initiative to upgrade antiquated tech and maximize efficiencies. At the time of Fraser's original pledge, the bank projected a $2.5 billion cost savings from the cuts. Do you love my heart? It's totally my vibe. I'm like incredibly a hearts person. I got my heart sweater, my heart tumbler, and this is whether it's February or not, it's my jam. I feel like I'm trying to say this appropriately. I feel like a lot of institutions I've been talking to are in this same boat, right? They're focusing on digital transformation, whether that's customer member facing, whether that's internal facing, employee facing, looking for efficiencies, implementing new technologies in a way that can eliminate jobs. And this may be because they want to grow their efficiencies and reduce the headcount costs, or could because they're already underwater and they need to in order to not have a negative outcome for the year. So it's interesting that a lot of how do I say this appropriately? I'm trying to be very careful. Um, a lot of these cuts are being put on the backs of employees, and these are not just at Citi, right? I'm talking about generally in banking. These are teams that are probably already thin, um, that are probably already working more hours than normal, that are probably already down team members, and now they're expected to take on tech projects in their spare time, while doing their regular role, meeting sales goals, trying to keep the place from going underwater. And it's interesting that a place like Citi, who you would again have expected to be more forward in the technology and further down in transformation initiatives, are tackling the same goals as banks and credit unions are on the community side. And we'll get into this a little more later because I saw some other interesting articles that relate to this. But they're talking about over time, we can expect automation, AI, and further process simplification to reshape how work gets done. Some roles will change, new ones will emerge, and others will no longer be required. Now, I'd be interested in hearing how much automation and AI they have in place in 2026. I was seeing it already in place back in 2020, 2021. A lot of RPA to do manual entries on the core. Um, and so the fact that there's places, and I City might have this already, and that they're just doubling down on it, adding new ones. Um, there's a lot of places that are just waking up right now and looking for efficiencies. And they think, okay, because I implement a new core, I'm all of a sudden efficient. And it's great. Having been through multiple technology upgrades and conversions over my career, can tell you that's when the work actually starts. There's a lot of pre-work that I don't think people always understand, where, especially if you've gone through a series of mergers, you have data cleanup, if you have legacy products, you have things you need to map over. I'm sure, there's missing data. If you used to take accounts that didn't have check all the boxes, there's data cleanup like that, outreach to customers and members. That's like a whole project in itself. Then you do the upgrade, and that's a huge project. And then after that, there's all the post work, right? Continuing to map things, continuing to make sure everything's running, and then starting to look at those efficiencies. And I'm just going to speak from some of my experience for a little bit. It's hard when there's no game plan, right? So this is easy to look at an article and say, we want efficiencies, we want to simplify processes. I'm just going to go on a limb here. I'm sure Citi has a roadmap, KPIs, a plan, alternate options for if this doesn't happen, then this. I bet they have that mapped out. I'm going to tell you that a lot of banks and credit unions don't. They're flying by the seat of their pants. And honestly, they should know better because there's enough talent out there that you should be able to have someone competent that can help map this out. A lot of it is the day by day. We're just going to do this and, hope that this gets done and then kind of fight the next fire. That's not sustainable. If your organization isn't showing you clear roadmaps, first quarter through fourth quarter, if they're not showing you a clear priority list of either cleanup efforts or new process improvements, if they're not making you and your teams part of it, this is a top-down approach, right? And it's not that they're getting team members involved, because I'm going to tell you, frontline or actual doers are the ones that can tell you where the efficiencies are. They see it all the time and they have frustrations, and you just need to listen. So if your organization isn't doing that, ask questions, bring it up, because I can tell you the boards are going to expect that. And sometimes they just gloss over, hoping that, the executive leaders give a nice dog and pony show and, talk about, red, yellow, and green. And I can tell you that that might fool them. But when it comes to actually putting the pen to the paper and the work that needs to be done, this probably needs to be more organized. Now, if you're lucky enough that you have I'll say even a project management office light, this is easy to do and really map out. But if you're a branch banker, a loan servicer, these are the questions that you could be asking, instead of just hearing, "Yeah, we got more cleanup to do," or "We have more integrations," or this. Like, it's okay to ask for a roadmap and a plan. And maybe even help propose one. If you're a team lead, you may not be able to control what's happening at a macro level, but you could break this down and map it out for your team. And I think that's incredibly helpful. Sometimes, middle leaders don't feel like they have that kind of, I'll say, authority, but definitely it's so helpful for the teams that you work with. And I know that anywhere I've been, even in the midst of chaos, filtering that out and trying to give my team a rosy colored glasses version of it that showed some sort of clear plan, even if I told them that plan was going to change, people feel really comfortable. They feel there's a sense of trust, right? So I think that's important. So it's interesting that both on the community bank and credit union side and the larger bank side, they're all struggling with the same thing right now. So I would say these are some buzzwords we're going to be hearing in 2026, right? Let's write them down. I've done enough talking. Let's write them down. So upgrade, antiquated, technology. That's one. Then we see, I could even say transformation efforts. Oh, maximize efficiencies. That's another good one. Maximize efficiencies. Go back, and if you haven't, I posted a video maybe yesterday of my 2016 versus 2026 throwback. So being able to compare both years, which is like kind of the popular trend on social right now. And I talked about there was some buzzwords of the year, omni-channel and such. And we're gonna write down our buzzwords for 2026, and we're gonna share them out after. So we have updated antiquated technology, maximize efficiencies, and it looks like slash jobs, but how can we say that in a different way? Oh, process simplification, but we can put that under maximize efficiencies. Process. I need a whiteboard. And we'll just call it reduce headcount. Headcount and layoffs. Cool. All right. Yeah. So then the next part of the article, um, the bank's outgoing CFO reports in, I would expect to see headcount continue to trend down. They've been making headway to their goal. Now, beyond the transformation, their fourth quarter earnings report, the bank said it generated about $85 billion in revenue in 2025, up roughly 6% from a year earlier. So I don't know if that's kind of be a trend, but definitely we're going to put this on maybe a trend. Places are looking for more of the revenue pie. Increase. With the possibility of, certain fees being cut or eliminated. We know that the president has gone saying he's going to cap credit card interest rates, freeze them at 10% for a year. It's kind of just been said. It's not really put into any sort of law or requirement, but something out there could very well have those sort of financial implications. And if there are financial companies that decide to adopt that recommendation and either use it as a PR stunt or a goodwill effort, they're probably planning for ways to make up that income. So interestingly, this is kind of like a foreshadowing quite a few years ago. I had pitched to my CEO that we eliminate overdraft fees. And this was probably 2018, 2019, maybe 2019, because 2018 would have been too soon. 2019. And we were at the time expanding our verticals into we already did a lot of commercial, right? And we were expanding payments verticals, and that had the opportunity to bring in a large non-interest income and increase revenue. And there was a balance there, right? Because as a community bank, how do you grow appropriately, right? And I said, okay, hear me out. If we can take this kind of risk and plan it and move into this space as an early adopter, and I'm going to say early because for our size and for who we were and for what we were able to do, it was ahead of most in our peer group. And that would allow us to double down on our community focus and not have overdraft fees. Because one, I knew that time was ticking, right? It hadn't been announced, but I knew I could see that was just not going to be sustainable forever. And I knew that it would also allow us the marketing opportunity to highlight ourselves and say, look what we're doing. We're not a fee-driven bank, et cetera, et cetera. Interestingly enough, so that didn't fly. Mainly because I think I'm going to say I half-hearted it. I threw it out there hoping it would stick to the wall. It didn't. I didn't get into numbers. I didn't get into a business case. It was my idea of the moment. I firmly stand by it because I I will say most of my ideas, while I could do a 50-page business case in PowerPoint, is not necessary. I know a good idea when I see one, and it would have been the right thing to do. Maybe not at the time, maybe not with the economics behind it, but eventually it would have been the right thing to do. And interestingly, back maybe a year and a half now, I was talking to another CEO, and they did the same thing. I don't believe it was all their accounts, but they offered a feature checking that, and it may have been all their accounts. I'll have to look that up. But they offered a feature checking that did not have overdraft fees. No strings. They were being a good community partner. Why? One, it was the right thing to do. Two, they know that overdraft fees are running up and that the time on them has probably an expiration date. So um, now they're the early adopter, but I and my team could be the earliest adopter. But again, I think it's the right thing to do, and they were able to build it appropriately so that they had revenue and the appropriate income in other ways. So I say, as we'll kind of put this as a light increased revenue, because there are a lot of places that have had significant losses, charge offs, stuff like that, and they're looking for a way to make that up and increase revenue. So we're going to put that on there. It's not a sexy one. I think it's kind of everyone's always looking for revenue, but I think it's important because it might play into some other things that come down the line in our little show today. Here we go. Here's another quote from the CFO. With much of our transformation behind us, we are shifting our focus to how we can use AI tools and automation to further innovate, re-engineer, and simplify our processes beyond risk and controls. I love that. I love how they say beyond risks and controls. And maybe I'm reading this differently than how it was intended. But so many times in organizations, and now if you're front office, back office, I'd love for you to weigh in. Shout out to the replay crew, by the way. I'm going to come back and read all the comments for those that are watching this on replay, because I'd love to see kind of what you're thinking. And I know this is during the day, so you're probably not listening to my rants while you're at your desk at work, but on your drive home, on your couch later tonight, or on your drive in the morning, would love to hear your thoughts. And oftentimes, right, organizations hide behind compliance, risks and controls, checking the boxes, black or white. I'll give you an example. The other day, I deposited a check into my bank account. It was remote deposit. I used my phone, took a picture. We all know that you need to write, sign your name, write for mobile deposit only, and the name of your financial institution. We got it. Okay. So I've been a customer there since 2005. I have all my accounts there. There are other factors. People know me. They could just call me, right? Send me an email. I deposit the check. It was, I want to say like $50. Oh, it was $50. I won something at my kid's school. It was really cool. Yeah, so it was a $50 check. I signed it. I wrote for deposit only, the name of the bank, deposited it. Now this is probably, I don't know, 3:00 on a Friday. So I'm like, cool, got it in total clear. Nice. 3:45. It gets rejected. Fortunately, I'm a cell phone addict, and I was on my phone constantly refreshing all of my feeds and my email, and I see that it gets rejected. And I'm like, it says invalid endorsement. And I'm like, what? I did all the, oh, I literally forgot the word mobile. Okay, so you rejected my check at 3:45 on a Friday because I didn't have the word mobile in there. Now, I've deposited many checks before. I am not a fly by night person. You know where to find me. Yet there was no call, there was no, we can just push this through. It's not like I didn't put the other stuff on there. It said my name for deposit only, the name of the bank. So it's not like I could go bring it somewhere else. Could I theoretically bring it through the drive-through at the bank? Yes, for $50 if I wanted to. Um, okay, but if you can't, okay, there's two parts to this, right? If you can't, one, have humans that can make these decisions, bring on the AI. Okay, bring on the AI because there has to be a way that it can be done better than this. Okay, so if you can put in AI tools that can make these decisions beyond risks and controls, because I can tell you that's exactly what that was. That was a procedure and a black and white, and I'm checking the box because my risks and controls tell me to. That was not a customer first decision. That was not a financial institution first decision. That was a black and white, I can't live in the gray decision. And if companies are paying employees not to use their brains and be empowered to make these decisions, what are you doing? What are you doing? I've always had this being on the retail side, like, and I'm gonna get people on the to come on here someday and co-host or do guest host, but they'll tell you like retail, you live in the gray. There is no black and white. Everything is a risk-based decision, and you can do it like that if you're a retail person. And if you can't, your manager can. And if the manager can't, the department head can. Because this is what, like, when you're in these roles, we pay you for your brain. We can get a machine or anything with thumbs to do the other tasks, right? You are in these roles because you have a brain. So if you're a retail person right now, or you're a back office person and you're watching this, and I know you are, use your brains. That's what we're paying you to do. Okay? And if management or colleagues are telling you otherwise, I say push back, right? Why not? Find somewhere that values that. Because I can tell you, like, that is a skill. Now, the flip side, that person could have called, they could have pushed, they could have emailed, they could, like, anything, right? But I had to take time out of my day, figure out what it was, and then put it through again. And you know what? They had already left for the day, so my check didn't go through till Monday. How do you think that makes me feel as a customer? How would you feel? It's pretty crappy. So let me tell you, if we have AI tools that can make these decisions beyond risks and controls, bring them on. The next one, this is interesting. We're going to continue to bring in top talent to fill in remaining gaps. I think a lot of financial institutions are thinking the same thing, and I'm going to asterisk the reduce headcount and layoffs because it's almost like a restructure of talent. Because people might have a lot of seats filled, but they're not the right people and they're not the right seats. And a lot of organizations are going through this, let's call it a workforce planning exercise, where what people do you have, what skills do they have, what seats are they in, what seats should they be in, where can we cut some fat? And I can tell you that off the top of my head, these decisions are probably sometimes being made in a vacuum with people and teams that aren't equipped to. So it's interesting that Citi is struggling with some of the same things, that they're looking to reduce headcount, but also probably bring in some high paying positions that maybe focus on AI, focus on process improvement, and be able to execute these new initiatives. So um, it might not necessarily, with the reduction in headcount, show a reduce in salaries or a significant reduce in salaries because they could be paying more expensive talent. I think that's interesting. That's kind of it for that, but it makes me think of another article, two actually I saw this week in Boston Business Journal. So again, I'm on the East Coast, Northeast, in Central Mass, and so a lot of my perspectives are through that lens. So we have two large financial institutions that recently completed a series of mergers up in this area. So we have Eastern Bank, and they just um, they just did quite a few mergers. The most recent one um, was, I think, their acquisition of Harbor One, which is closing, well, 2025, 2026. They're kind of finalizing the member move over now. I believe it closed the end of last year. But they had previously to that had done Cambridge Trust, and then before that Century Bank. So all within the last 5 years, they've done three large acquisitions. And then we have Rockland Trust, another large institution over in this area, who just completed the large acquisition or merger of Enterprise Bank. So both of them were interviewed in Boston Business Journal probably about a week apart. The first one was Eastern, of course, who leads the way around here. I remember a lot of times places would look to Eastern with things as simple as snow closures, right? A lot of places just had one of those right now, even down south, snow closures with everyone getting hit with snow. And we'd say, well, if Eastern's calling it the night before, we're all just going to call it. um, because they did do some bank services like cash handling and stuff for us. And so, like, well, if our bank's closing, we're closing too. So they're kind of the compass for a lot of things. They really went strong with social responsibility, which I absolutely love and just am very passionate about. I love that. They've done a great job with that campaign. Feels like it maybe has gotten a little lighter in the last 2 years or so, but they did a Join Us for Good, which really focused on the values that they held as an organization. And you can tell that maybe that's wound down a little bit or not been the spotlight with, putting out their acquisition and merger messaging. They have a lot of things to focus on. So it's probably not putting all the messages out there, right? So it's probably intentional. But they came out and said, this year, we're focusing on a couple things. We're focusing on buybacks for bad loans and integration. So that kind of goes into maximizing efficiencies, process simplification. We'll put in integrations. Writing that on our list, and integrations for putting the companies together, right? So chances are they're probably on a couple different legacy systems, or maybe the core is together, but then there's a bunch of ancillary other things that need to be moved around. So that's what they're focusing on. Interestingly enough, a week later, there's an article with Rockland Trust. Oh, let me go back. There's an important thing with Eastern. They say that they're not pursuing any more M&A this year. So Eastern says we're focusing on buybacks, integrations, and not pursuing any more M&A for a little bit. We're holding. We're going to work on ourselves. Okay, that's important. Now comes the Rockland Trust. The headline: Rockland Trust rules out banking M&A as it focuses on enterprise bank conversion. Isn't that interesting? So their plan, again, to focus on themselves, um, work on the conversion, which likely has to be integrations, maximizing efficiencies, process simplifications. The Rockland Trust had, I want to say it was around 125 layoffs, most likely from the enterprise side. I know there's a lot of talent being scooped up right now in our market for enterprise people. They're getting scooped up into other roles because they've been out on the street due to the merger and the layoffs. So Rockland says, we don't have any plans for M&A. We're focusing on organic growth. I'm going to put that one on here too. Excuse me. So if you're a newbie, right, in the banking world, I'm going to break down a couple of these. So organic growth is like mining your own customer base. So not focusing on lots of acquisition strategies, but growing what you have and cultivating it yourself. So they're gonna focus on that, growing with what they have. So those are two big institutions that have really come out with what their plan is, right? So I'm going to kind of put this into perspective and back up a little bit. So let's just say, I mean, they've been doing this for a while, but let's take a baseline of 2020, 2021, right? So that was 5 years ago. Eastern and Rockland have been pedal to the metal, focusing on M&A along with other things, right? Everyone else starts to wake up. It's 2024. It's 2025. Now, in 2026, Eastern saying, Rockland saying, we're done. We're good. We're going to focus on us. So you can imagine the laggards, which is, let's say 80% of us, are now focusing on M&A. And let me see. I have an interesting statistic. I think I wrote it down. And I wasn't able to find an updated number for 2025, but let's just focus on credit unions, right? So in 2024, the NCUA approved 162 mergers for credit unions. And in 2025, they had, by the first 9 months of the year, approved 121 with a projected 170 to be underway by year end. So if there were 162 mergers in 2024 for credit unions and 170 mergers in 2025 for credit unions, you can imagine what 2026 looks like. So I think hypothetically, right? If you're a financial institution, a credit union, and you haven't been talking M&A, or as a team member, if you haven't heard anything about M&A, chances are there's talks behind the scenes. Okay? Because there's predicted to be a large influx of mergers of equals. There could be larger credit unions absorbing smaller credit unions, or larger community banks absorbing smaller community banks, sure. But what we're seeing right now, and this was a big topic, I'm going to say back in 2007, 2010, that kind of like window was merger of equals, looking to gain, buzzwords, efficiencies, right? If you have two electronic banking teams, both focusing on $500 million institutions, why not have one team that could focus on a $1 billion institution, and you probably need less people, right? So, we have Eastern and Rockland, right? Now we have everyone else, the laggards. There's some in there that are already underway. Those have already been announced clearly. The DCU and the First Tech merger, that was a big one. That's I'll say underway, right? Um, but if you haven't heard anything, chances are people are thinking it. Yeah, there's talks. Yeah, because no one's gonna thrive. Yeah. But I think one thing that needs to be um very clear, right, for this kind of requirements, two things come to mind. One, laser focused leadership. Okay. Um, you can't have a leader come out and say, we're focusing on our technology, we're maximizing efficiencies, we're increasing revenue, like all these things, right? We're going to do organic growth. Oh, by the way, psst, hey, we're going to do reducing headcount. We're going to have some layoffs, but we're not going to tell you that because we're upgrading antiquated technology. We're maximizing efficiencies. We're increasing revenue. We're focused on organic growth. We're building new branches. We're closing branches. We're building an online channel. We're bringing in talent. Okay, all these things that are on our little checklist right here, right? You can't do all those things at the same time. You can't do them all well. All right, so you need laser focused leadership. And again, this goes back to the roadmap. You need to have a clear path, and that path can have parallel paths, but they need to be laser clear. Okay, it's funny because I'm going to share this. I used to work with a CEO, and if anyone's watching that can appreciate this story, one of the nicest guys in the world, and couldn't send out an email to save their life. Okay, so if you said, hey, I need you to send out this message to everyone, here's kind of what I want it, I need you to write that for me. Cool. I'm going to write it for you, but I can't just write it and send it to you and ask you to cut and paste it and send it out as if it's your own, because when I send it to you, you're going to forward it with my attachment, my comments, and oh, by the way, my email signature, so everyone knows that I wrote it, sent it to you, all my comments, and now you send it. So we would have to go in the office and say, I have an email for you to send out. I'm going to send it to you. Don't touch it. Okay, cool. Yes, boss, whatever you need. Go back, send it, come in, take it out, cut, paste. Okay, can you read it? Make sure you're good with it. Cool. Okay, I'm going to send it. Now I'm going to take that and I'm going to post on the internet for you. Just get up, please. Get up. Okay. Do it. All right. And I always thought that that was not a sign of weakness, but maybe a shortfall, right? Like, oh my gosh, you are running a multi-billion-dollar organization. You can't send out email. Well, I'm going to tell you, since spreading my wings and growing, I can see why he didn't waste his time doing that. Okay? It was calculated. Some of it may have been a technology deficit. Sure. We'll just get fine. But I'm going to tell you a million times over, I would rather have a CEO and a leader that can run an organization, grow it, keep people happy, engaged, stay there, than to have someone that can send their own emails, make their own slide decks. Because if you're doing that, and that's what you pride yourself on, you're not a good leader. And you're not leading the organization the way that you should be. And it's going to fail. And I'm not speaking about anyone specific. I'm just talking in general. Being a millennial, I feel like I have superpowers, right? I can do a little bit of everything. I have the laser focused leadership. I have a strategic vision. I'm also really good with technology. I can do a PowerPoint deck. I'm amazing. Us millennials, we can do it all. Okay. But that's a good lesson for me that whatever this next chapter looks like for me, you don't always need to do it all. And this is a lesson for all of you. You don't always need to do it all. Look at what your team needs. Look at what your people need. Someone else can do the fancy PowerPoint. Okay. Someone else can make the text zoom in and out. Okay. That's not impressing anyone. You know what? Leading a badass organization for growth with laser focus, that's impressive. Now, the second thing, communication, right? I talked about a little about this earlier, but didn't actually call out the phrase communication. Needs to be critical to avoid mixed messages. So if you're hearing all this thing about here's what we're doing, technology, efficiencies, headcount, like all this stuff. People, team members, employees, department heads need to see how it all goes together. Um, and there may be a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes, right? But there needs to be a a concerted message. Um, like if we go back and talk about Citi, right? They had a large initiative they called the transformation, right? And they outlined what that was in what areas and how it affected. And I think that's very important, right? If you are leading an organization or you're part of an organization that are doing all these things, make it a clear message, brand it internally. All right. Talk about it, live it every single day. It's not just something that you put up on the internet once in a while or mention at your annual team meeting, right? This needs to be front and center. And like mixed messages, if there's all this stuff going on, you don't know what to focus on because, like, if you haven't figured this out, I have OCD. And it manifests in many different ways. But one of it is I get laser focused on things. And if you tell me the goal is upgrading technology, literally everything my team focuses on will lead back to upgrading antiquated technology. And if I am going to do something and it may not seem right, like, why are you focused on this? Well, here's how it leads back to what you told me the goal is upgrading antiquated technology. Okay. Same thing. If you say our focus is customer service, literally everything I do, it may not appear customer service related, but I could map to you back how it supports customer service. And I would share that with my teams and I would expect them to live that every day. Okay. And I think not enough organizations do that. And it gets confusing, right? So if you say our goal is upgrading antiquated technology, but then all of our sub goals are this, and this. I don't understand. Okay. This is what I'm focused on. So you got to show the whole picture. And I love how Citi dubs it the transformation and talks about what that means. I should probably look into, I'm going to note that. I'm going to look into that to see like if they have any decks on it. I'm sure they do. I'd like to review that to see how they kind of brand it. And it's obviously probably different internally versus externally, but I really think that would be super cool to look and kind of see how they do it. But it goes back to don't do mixed messages. You can't do things all at the same time and you can't do it well. Like if you're a financial institution, hypothetically, right? Okay. And behind the scenes, you're pursuing an M&A strategy and no one in your organization knows or very few people know, your organization needs to be in alignment, right? As you're reviewing prospective partners, that's a lot of work. Okay. And so if you have your team focused on, let's say, upgrading technology and you're working on an M&A strategy and people don't know that, and then you're holding off on, well, I know we said the focus is technology, but I'm not going to sign these new agreements that would actually save us money and improve our technology and maybe reduce headcount because I'm focused on M&A strategy and I want to make ourselves look good. Um, that's confusing to team members, right? So you have probably a whole subset of people that are like, shit, why are we not doing this glaringly obvious improvement if, we're being told and pontificated to that our goal is antiquated technology, fixing it, maximizing efficiencies. Hello? Okay, I hope like this really is for like the teams that are down and dirty in the weeds. Okay. So this stuff might be like, what are you talking about? But I hope it's giving you a little insight as to what leaders are going through. But if you're a leader, right, and you're an executive, you're watching this, I hope you get something out of it because these are what teams are thinking. And I've been fortunate to be the bridge on both sides. I've been in executive roles, I've been in frontline roles, and being my personality, I need to speak to all of them and I need to be relatable to all of them. And so this hopefully in through this channel, we're going to be able to like bridge some of these gaps. So please, if you're watching this, don't say like, oh, well, that's a very like low level thing thinking. No, 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 no. Or be like, oh, that's like executive in her ivory tower thinking. No, 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 no. You're getting the real deal. I know both sides. I do both sides well, and I'm here to talk about it. So I think as you're doing this, right? And if you're taxing team members, let's go back to Citi, let's go back to Eastern, let's go back to Rockland. If you're taxing team members with the goal of upgrading technology, increasing sales culture, thwarting away losses on bad loans, all of that, it's hard to reduce headcount at the same time, especially if you're small, right? Let's take the big places out of it. I'm sure they have their struggles, but if you're like, let's say $1 billion in assets or under, or even $1.5 billion or under, and you're asking them to do all these things. Oh, by the way, and we're reducing headcount or not replacing roles as they come in, that sends a message. That sends a message. Okay. So there's a way to do it. There's a way to be strategic about it. But it's hard to pile on that kind of workload and reduce team members at the same time. We're going to say penny wise, pound foolish. Yeah. Um, so I think going back to your leadership needs to be laser focused on what the actual priorities are, and communication needs to support that. Um, I had a CIO, not CIO, COO that I worked for once. And every time I brought him a new idea, I'd be like, I was a sucker for sales pitches. I'm not gonna lie. I like shiny, and I could see through it. I could ask the tough questions, but at the end of the day, I knew certain things that would work really well. And every time I brought him a new idea, and I'm like, I'm gonna sign this. Let's do it. He goes, "Is this gonna either make us money or save us money?" And then I would take my shiny retail and marketing hat and I would pack up my notebook and I would go back to my office because a lot of the times it was neither. Um, so I'd have to rethink my approach and really put some numbers. So there were things that I didn't do because I would have him in my head and I would say, "Is this going to make us money or save us money?" And I've been able to use that over the course of my career when someone says, "Oh, I'd love to do this new thing that um, makes it easier for team members to search whatever and helps internal simple. Is it going to make us money or save us money?" And if you can't show me how it's going to save money or make us money, we're not doing it right now. And I thought that was a really good nugget. And I've carried that with me a lot. Um, I would add two things to it, right? So is it going to make us money? save us money. Actually, it's like one thing. Stay relevant or evolve. Okay. So that's number 3. Make us money, save us money, stay relevant or evolve. Because I think there are a lot of things out there that are necessities that aren't necessarily at the forefront that are going to do the first two, but that keep you relevant and help you evolve as an organization. So let me give you an example. Back mm, maybe 8 years ago, I wanted to switch over to a new online banking platform. Again, I'm always like, I don't know, 5 to 10 years ahead of my time on things. And I was like, this is the right thing to do. We were with a certain provider. It was a legacy provider through our core. I wanted to move over to a new modern one. It would be unlike what team competitions had out there. It would allow for a lot of new features. It was beautiful. Worked really well. Because I'm thinking, right, from the customer's perspective, this is great. This makes it easier to do business, which was a goal. It increases and helps our brand awareness, which was a goal. Um, and it helped us evolve, which I'm going to add here as my third one. And the thought was, is it going to make us money or save us money? Well, at the time, we're in a contract. It was not at the end. It was not going to save us any money. So it was probably going to cost us some money to get out. Okay. Is it going to make us money? No. Sure, could I get really crafty and put together a prospectus that shows here's the new customers we're going to gain, here's the marketing strategy, here's how all this stuff. Sure, yeah, I could, and I've done that. But when you look at it, no, nope. But for me, it was about staying relevant and evolving as a financial institution, and I can tell you, fast forward a couple years, that's exactly what happens. Places, and this isn't just here, right? This is everywhere in my examples. Places evolve. They redesign branches. Not because they need to. Some of them need to. But because it helps them stay modern, stay relevant. They adapt new digital tools. Not because it's going to make money or save money, but it's brand perception. It stays relevant, right? Let's take McDonald's, for example, right? People are going to go to McDonald's for the same cheeseburger and the same fries. Okay. They have not innovated. Innovated? Is that a word? Yeah, sure. They have not had any changes or improvements radically in their cheeseburgers or fries, right? It's the same. People are going to go there. The price has gone up, yeah. But they're still going to go. They're still going to get the same cheeseburger, fries, and a Diet Coke. Okay. I am not a Diet Coke person. I'm not a Coke person. That's a story for another day. But they've made significant investments to evolve their physical footprint into the cafe model. And they actually have plans to continue to upgrade and invest in digital transformation. And it's not because having cafes are necessarily going to make them money, right? Sure, there's a thought that you're creating this like third space where people can come and collaborate and do their work and meet people. Sure, there's a third space there. Maybe that translates into more purchases. I'm not sure it does. I think their model is speed, scale, but is their cafe going to save money? Probably not. It's costing them money to remodel. Is it cheaper than keeping up with the same gross? Yeah, maybe. Probably not. So if it's not going to make them money or save money to remodel and redesign their physical locations into this McCafe model, what is it doing? Well, it's helping them stay relevant and it's evolving. There's a freshness about it, a perception that they're vibrant, right? They're not the old crusty arches. And I think there's some of that in the bank and credit union world where, and we're not going to get into physical versus digital today. That's a whole nother topic of discussion, but there's there's the need to continue to refresh and stay relevant and evolve. Um, I had a college professor, and I forget what class it was, but it was some sort of operations leadership class, and everything he would say would be innovate or die, adapt or become extinct. And I feel like that really is a good summary for everything we talked about today. With all the different things going on in the industry, it's innovate or die, adapt or become extinct. Yeah. So where do we go from here? I think I hit all the topics that I had on my short list. I'm going to, being the astute note taker that I am, I'm going to type this up and share it on the studio page with our buzzwords for 2026 and what we're predicting. If you have any, as you watch it on the replay crew, feel free to drop it in the chat and I'll come back and look at it later. What you think are going to be focuses. Do you agree with any of this? Do you not agree with any of it? I'd be interested in hearing what you're thinking and how your organization is going. And definitely, we'll continue this conversation. I hope you got some very interesting nuggets out of this. I hope you had some laughs. Thank you for joining the Carrie Show. We are just getting started. And for all those that said it's not the Carrie Show, guess what, baby? It is. Thank you all. Be sure to like and subscribe. We'll see you all soon and stay social, my friends.